What's up, guys? Horror Man back for another review. So I have another retro review for you today, and this is going to be the Resident Evil 4 collection by NECA Toys. Now, I don't have all of the Resident Evil 4 figures. In total, we're going to be looking at basically about 8 different figures. One of them isn't necessarily from Resident Evil 4, but is a character that's in Resident Evil 4. I do have a duplicate of one of them, so we'll basically be taking a look at some different loose figures, and I also have a couple still in the box that I want to show you. So let's go ahead and start by taking a look at Leon, the star of the game, of course. Now, they made a few different versions of Leon. I have all of them here. So you basically had the RPD version, which is based off of his classic Resident Evil 2 look, but it was a bonus costume in the game. Then, of course, we have the regular jacket version of Leon, which has always been my personal favorite. This one and the no jacket version are part of the Series 1 collection. So pretty much the same figure, a little bit different accessories included, but it is pretty much the same figure, just without the jacket. There is a bit of a difference between the RPD version, so I think they kind of revisited the head sculpt. But yeah, this is the first Leon that they made along with the no jacket version. And for the most part, I think they did a pretty good job. Obviously, it is a very old figure, and they've changed a lot since then. But I did think for the time, they did a pretty good job on him. They got the hair just about right. It is a little thick on this one than his left side, but for the most part, it's not too bad. And just like with all NECA figures, they do get the texturing really good. You can see they got a lot of different texturing going on in the hair. And the hair is, sculpted separately, so if you can pull it away enough from his face, you can see his face just a little bit better underneath the hair. So it is like fully sculpted on there. And then down to the torso here, of course, he does have that jacket. And I think this is the best thing sculpted on this figure. I just really, really like the way they did it. And this is a separate piece, so it's a thin material. And it actually does feel pretty good quality. It's not like that harder plastic that has no movement to it. And the jacket has really nice texturing going on. You could also see the different seams going across, which is nice. And also the difference in fabric where like the softer parts of the collar are. And I really do like that the collar itself is popped. And then you can also see a little belt buckle on the bottom. Now the legs are exactly the same on all three figures. But you can see again really nice details. You can see some different wrinkles and things like that. You do have some little details, of course, on like the belt. And then you also have some really nice details and a little holster on the side of his right leg. He definitely has some pockets going on in the back. So really nice details going on. Of course, you have his boots. Different strings look pretty good. He does have peg holes on the bottom of the feet. He stands pretty good because he is pre-posed and doesn't have leg articulation. But sometimes it wouldn't be too bad to have a stand for these guys. The RPD version doesn't stand quite as good. And looking at the non-jacket version of Leon, definitely some nice details that you don't see with the jacketed version. You do get to see just a tiny bit more of the gloves. You also, of course, see his forearm and musculature, which looks really nice. You also get one little incentive for buying this version, and it kind of makes you want to buy both versions, because you actually get a different gun with this version. So with the regular jacketed version, you get this rocket launcher, which looks really cool, but the regular non-jacketed version, you get the shotgun. So a little bit of a bonus for getting this version. You also get a really nice looking harness, and this will be able to store one gun, and you can also sheath one of the knives that you get with the figures, which is nice. And you do get some really nice details in that harness. You can see a couple little buttons on there. You do get an extra storage holster for a gun in addition to the one that's on his leg like all the other Leons. And then you also get some ammo pockets on the sides which look really nice. Again, the shirt does have some little bit of details in here. You can see some different seams, some different wrinkles. You can even see his spine. So really nice details. And regardless which one of these you get, it is the same exact head sculpt. There really isn't any differences there. These were both part of the same Series 1, so pretty much the same exact figure, just a different torso and a couple little additions with the harness, and of course you get a different weapon for each one. Alright, so looking at the RPD version, I can't tell if this one has a completely different head sculpt as far as the face, but it definitely has different hair than the regular one, and the face is completely different painted. So yeah, it's hard to tell if it's a completely different face sculpt, but it definitely has enough differences to mention. But yeah, the face looks pretty good on this one. Again, the eyes definitely show up a little bit better. The hair isn't quite hiding the face as much, so I guess they just wanted to kind of make it look a bit more like the Resident Evil 2 version, even though it's really not exactly the same look, but it does look different enough. He does have a little bit longer hair in the Resident Evil 4 version, so that might be why they changed it a little bit. But yeah, you can see where the hair kind of comes more down to the bottom of his chin, whereas this one is just below the ear. And the hair on the left side, you can see where this one kind of comes straight down, whereas this one kind of brushes back just a little bit. So I do like how it brushes back more. This one's maybe too straight down. Besides the head sculpt being different, you definitely have a much different torso. You can see he's got the RPD outfit on, and again, this was not actually featured in the story or any kind of flashback part. This was just a reward for beating the game, and you would have his classic RPD uniform. But yeah, you see the RPD on the front of his chest here, around his stomach. You do have a sheath with this one. You don't get the harness, but it is nice that you have a sheath with this version. But yeah, really nice details in his outfit. You do have pretty much the same gloves, but you do have the long sleeves, and he also has elbow pads. And you do have the RPD shield on the side, and yeah, you do have the nice elbow pads on there. You also have that same RPD logo on the back. Again, you have that logo. We got the star right in the center, which looks really cool. I really like the texturing on the outfit. Definitely looks nice. Kind of has like a, body armor, like flak jacket type of look to it. And then the sheath looks really nice. I like the stitching. The knife can be easily removed, and some decent detail on there. And you can just sheath it just like that. So yeah, overall, really nice details on this RPD Leon. And again, the legs and the boots are exactly the same. All they did was just paint a different color just to match his RPD outfit. But everything on his lower half is exactly the same as the other two. Here's another quick look at some of the accessories you get with the different Leons here. You do get 3 different grenades. You get the regular explosive grenade. You get the incendiary grenade. You also get the handgun, of course, which you see him with in most of the game. And then you also have the shotgun, which looks really nice. And then finally you have the rocket launcher. Now there's also a submachine gun, which I cannot find at the moment. And then of course you do get a knife with each one, I believe. But you do get a fair amount of really cool accessories with the Leon figures. So this is a pretty big line of characters, but you don't get a lot of like human characters, especially like hero characters. But you do get Ada, which I use the word hero very lightly with her. She's not always on your side, she's not always the good side, but she definitely is a bit of an ally for you in the game, so I do like they included her. But I think the sculpt looks really nice on her. You do get some really good texturing in the hair. I think they got the hair right. The eyes don't look perfectly forward, which always kind of bothered me, because the head sculpt, it really only turns left and right, so it's kind of hard to get her to look right at the camera. But yeah, I think for the most part, they did a pretty good job on her head sculpt. And here's just a different angle of the other side of her face. And again, I really do think they got the hair done really well on this figure. Here's the right side of her face. Again, really nice texturing in the hair. Just overall, really nice head sculpt for Ada. And over to the back of her head, again, really nice texturing on there. And then you can see this, like, she has like this choker on, and these are like little pieces from that choker. It's cool that they like just sculpted these completely separate. So looking at the dress for Ada here, of course she has her signature red dress, and it does have a lot of cool little details in it. Now her articulation is not very good. You just can basically just move her arms away. It is kind of neat that you can like cross her arms. But yeah, you can see some really good details in there. Some really nice details in the straps on her dress, and just all these little like designs all going throughout it. All look really nice, got some seams and just some different wrinkling in the dress. Really nice details in the back as well. Again, you do have these cool little pieces from her necklace, and they are sculpted separate. You can see how the dress is kind of tied in the back a little bit. Really nice curve to her body, and again, more of those details in the dress. She does have a leg holster for a gun, and originally she did come with a handgun. I can't say for sure if the handgun would actually fit in there though, so it'd have to be a really small gun, like maybe the Matilda or something, but I don't have the gun that came with her. And finally down to her lower half, again you see those really cool designs in that red dress, which looks fantastic. And then you can see that she has these heels with like straps going across the front. She doesn't stand that well, so I do use a stand with her generally. But you can see what's really cool is you do have the slit in the dress on the right side, and then the left side just has, you know, the full pattern and the dress. So overall, she's really cool. I like the design. I really do like this version of Ada. Here's Ada with the only weapon I have for her, which is the Chicago typewriter. Very badass weapon, just that classic Tommy gun. Now, if you actually unlock this in the game, it was basically like an automatic weapon with one-shot kills. Makes the game extremely easy, but it is a badass gun. And she holds it pretty good. I mean, you can get her in a couple poses with it, but I do like the relaxed pose with this one. You don't get a whole lot of articulation with Ada. You can basically just rotate the arms, rotate the wrist, and rotate the head sculpt. But you can get her in a decent shooting pose. So if you want to have her kind of armed and getting ready to take out some of the ganados, you could definitely pose her up. Alright, so venturing into the first bad guy character here, this is the Chainsaw Ganado, and he was also part of the Series 1, so this was one of the first figures out, and I really like this character. He was one of my favorites in the original game. I do like him in this new game as well, but in the original game, he was just, something about him was just so intimidating. But that Friday the 13th style, you know, sack mask and that chainsaw, as soon as you hear that coming, you just, man, you better run. But I think they did a really good job with this guy. I love the pose. Even though it's a pre-pose, I really do like it. I think they did an excellent job with the sack mask. You could see some really good texturing in there. You could see his eyes just enough, and he looks extremely angry. You could see that there's definitely, you know, it looks like a face underneath there. It's not just like a flat front to his face. So you can see some wrinkles going on in there. Got those hairy arms, big old knuckles. I mean, he's a beefy character, but very intimidating. Over to the side, some really good details again in that mask. You can see that seam line going right down the middle. I like how you can see where it's tied or cinched, and then the back even kind of goes up just a little bit. Really nice details in the arms. I can't say that enough. You can definitely see the hair, the details. Just looks like he's a really strong dude. So I really like the details there. Some really nice wrinkling in the shirt as well. You can see how the sleeves are pulled up, of course. He is wearing suspenders, so you can see him in the back a little bit better here. It is a separate piece than the shirt. The shirt just looks like a thermal, and you can see all the different textures in there, different stains, different wrinkles. And you can see part of the neck in his back, so it looks like an actual person wearing a mask. You can move his arms up and away from his stomach, so just to give you a little bit better detailed look at his torso. Again, you can see the suspenders really nicely. and they are all separate sculpts. Definitely nice details in that thermal. Just overall excellent details. Got some nice texturing in the pants, definitely some stains. You can see some really big stains in the knees, just some wear overall, some really nice texture going on. You can see where the suspenders attach to the actual waist of the pants. And then finally over to the back of the pants, again, really good details, some stains everywhere on the pants. You can see some different seams, some different pockets. The actual boots look really nice, they're all stained up. Peg holes on the bottom of the feet. This is a really strong figure, you really don't need a stand for him. And here's a nice look at the actual chainsaw that comes with him. Now unfortunately mine has encountered some breakages over the years. So you can see the little handle that he holds onto is broken, unfortunately. There is really nice details in the chainsaw though. You can see his little logo on the blade. You can see that really nice looking chain going around with the blades. I like the little stains and stuff on the motor part of the chainsaw itself. Just really good details. Villain, I have the Garrador, and he's a really, really badass villain. Now as you can see, his eyes are sewn shut, so you can see that pretty clearly here. He does have this really badass looking helmet with the spikes and the mouth guard. Now one thing about this character, he has very limited articulation, and I have to show him leaning over because otherwise he's looking up. Here's a quick look at the side of the helmet. You can see those spikes look really, really cool. Here he is in his natural pose, and again, he just doesn't have any head articulation to make him look down, unfortunately. He does have this really cool little neck piece, kind of like an executioner, and he also has a real chain on here, so that's pretty cool. So you do get the real chain around the neck. But he does look really cool. Like I said, he's got a badass looking helmet. Over to the back, you could definitely see that very medieval style collar piece with the stitching going across. The helmet comes down pretty low, so you can't really see his neck at all, of course. And then the most important part on the body of this figure is that parasite that's on the back of him. And that is the weakness of this character. So you basically would shoot your gun at this bell, and he'll draw his attention to the bell and probably slash his claws into the wall, get stuck there for a second, and that gives you a chance to shoot him right in the back. So he was definitely a tough character, but he was very vulnerable on the back, and it was because of that parasite. There isn't a whole lot of posability with this guy in general, but he can do a really cool pose with those claws. The only other thing you could do is you could rotate the claws in, and then it could just look like that. The claws themselves are badass. I mean, they are huge. This gives Wolverine a run for his money for sure. But unfortunately, much like the Chainsaw Ganado, this figure has also taken some damage over the years, so some of the spikes have come off, and that's because these old NECA figures didn't really put the softer plastics when they really needed to. So those claws are a little busted off, and then the other side's just as bad, unfortunately. Now the claws themselves can be removed, so if you want to just have them with one of the claws, you could do that, or if you just need the room on your shelf, you could definitely do that. And lastly, just looking at some more of the details in the body here, you could definitely see some cuts on his torso here. He's no shirt on, so you could definitely see, his chest, a little bit of, weathering on him, a little bit of hair on him. He does have these cool little armbands on. Almost looks like a wrestling belt that goes around his waist. Just some dark pants. He does have some shin guards on his boots. Pretty good boots on here. He's got a little bit of metal guards on his toes. You got peg holes, but you really don't need it for this guy. I mean, he is like a rock, so he stands just fine. But yeah, just really nice details in this figure, but extremely breakable and really bad articulation. Alright, so the final villain that I have loose here is basically the red robe monk, and he's got this really cool skull on his head. He's the one that kind of controls some of the other ones. He's like the monk priest, I guess. But he's got really, really cool details. He actually does have some eyes. You can see him right there. He's basically got a hooded mask, kind of like an executioner or like Cobra Commander. He just has this really cool skull right on top. And I always thought this was one of the coolest characters in the game. I mean, he really does have this memorable look to him. And he's definitely intimidating. Even though fighting him isn't as crazy, sometimes you can kill him pretty quick because he's not always armed. But other times, man, he jumps in a chair with like a Gatling gun or something, and you really better look out for this guy. And looking at the rest of his outfit here, you got a lot of wrinkles going on since it is that robe, of course. A lot of sculpted pieces, some separate from the actual sculpt. So you have this really cool little front piece that hangs down. It looks like a banner, and it's got the Illuminato's symbol on it. Got a lot of nice gold decoration going on there. Just really good sculpting. Hands are really creepy looking. A lot of wrinkles going on. Very pale looking character. And then if you lift this like banner piece, you can see he does have like a rope that goes around his waist, which looks really nice. And he does have that really cool piece in the back as well. Again, you can see that same Illuminato symbol, that gold decoration going on that robe. So really nice piece. Again, you can see the rope hanging down, and it is a separate piece from the sculpt, so really nice details there. You do have some peg holes in the bottom of the feet, just a solid piece underneath. You just see the feet there. This figure does have a little bit better articulation than some of the others. He can rotate his head a little bit. He can go left and right. Not too much up and down, but it does move a little bit. Can get his arm to go up pretty high, down. He can rotate it, but it won't bend. It only rotates. And then you can move the wrist a little bit as well. And then the other arm you can go in and out with at the elbow. It can go out like that. Can't really go up as good, but it can go up a little bit if you want. Go back. Nothing really, just at the legs. You just got the ankles that can move. So a little bit better articulation. I kind of like that he's got this kind of pointing finger, so he can kind of like, you know, order his minions to attack Leon. So a little bit better articulation, but great sculpting. You do get a really cool crossbow with him. It's got that like ancient, very old world style. A little bit of a combination of wood and metal, and I really love the details in this. There's a quick look at the front of the crossbow. Again, really nice details, and you can definitely see he's got an arrow loaded. And he can hold it pretty good, and you can even put the finger right in that trigger of the crossbow. And if you collected any of the Resident Evil 1 line, this is the hunk from that. He's not necessarily part of the Resident Evil 4 line, but he's definitely in the game in the Missionaries mode. So if you want to have another figure that kind of goes with Resident Evil 4, this hunk figure will work perfect for that. Pretty good sculpting on this guy. I'm not going to go over too much of it because this is a specific Resident Evil 4 video. But again, it's a really cool looking figure. Great details, and if you want one more person to add to your good guy kind of hero roster for Resident Evil 4, I think this guy looks pretty good. Alright, then finally, I do have a couple of the Resident Evil 4 figures that I've never taken out of the box. First and foremost, I do have another RPD Leon, and as you can see, he did come with that machine gun. And he does have one more grenade, and he also had the first aid spray, which I forgot. He did come with that. So yeah, you do get some really cool pieces with him. Again, it's the same figure that we already looked at as the loose one, but I just wanted to show you what the packaging looked like on there. And then you can also see what the back looks like. You can see a really cool picture of Leon here, and it does say a limited edition exclusive presents Leon in the classic Raccoon City Police uniform. And it does say Series 2 on the back. And you can see some other characters that I don't necessarily have, like Krauser, the Regenerator, Iron Maiden. And then there is a bunch of different Los Illuminados monks. And that brings me to this one, which is another one of the monks. So the only monk that I have is the red robe, like priest. So this is just another version. This one's considered the skull mask version, and he basically has the same crossbow as the red robe version. He just has a much different head sculpt, and this one has the Illuminato symbols all over him, and of course it is a different paint scheme. And on the back you can see you do get a cool picture of the Los Illuminados monks on here. So there is a bunch of different versions, but really cool packaging. Love that you can see the different characters, just in case you wanted to get a couple different monks or like army build. I did want to get a comparison for the packaging. So you do have the NECA Resident Evil 4 RPD Leon, and then here's the original Toy Biz Leon from Resident Evil 2. You can see the outfits very similar. Really cool to see a nod to that original Leon from Resident Evil 2. For your first scale comparison, here's the jacketed Leon next to the monk in the red robe and then the chainsaw Ganado, and you can see that they are just a little bit taller than Leon. And here he is next to Ada, and it is worth noting that Leon's knees are bent, so he would be much taller than Ada, but they do scale about the same height with his knees bent. Here he is next to the Garrador, and you can see the Garrador is definitely taller. Here he is next to the Resident Evil 6 figure made by PlayArts Kai, and you can see that PlayArts Kai is much taller. Here he is with the Resident Evil 4 Hot Toys Leon, and also the Resident Evil 4 Remake Collector's Edition statue. And those are both in 12-inch scale, so you can see they are much taller than this Leon. Here's the RPD Officer Leon, basically, made by Lim Toys. That's not a licensed figure, but it is fantastic, and it's based on the RE2 remake. And then you have the Leon RPD from NECA. And of course, again, his knees are bent. He would be taller, so they're not in scale together, but it is really cool to see these two next to each other. Alright, and for the final comparison, here he is with some other more modern figures. So for your 6-inch comparison, here's the 1989 Batman made by Mezco, and then the Mortal Kombat Scorpion figure made by Storm Collectibles. And they're just a little shorter next to Leon, but then if you want something a little more in scale with him, any of the NECA stuff should look good with him. Here he is with a very cool zombie Jason from Friday the 13th, The New Blood. But they all look pretty cool next to him. So if you want some video game stuff, you could probably go with the Mortal Kombat, but I really think he looks great with a lot of that horror NECA stuff. Alright, so that's the end of my retro review for the NECA Toys Resident Evil 4 collection. Now, even though I don't have all the figures from this collection, I'm very happy with the ones I have. When this originally came out, these figures were around $10 to $20, I believe. They were very inexpensive. And they were actually in places like Spencer Gifts, which is much different compared to nowadays, where you really don't see them in those stores anymore. But I really do love the figures. Of course, by today's standards, they don't have the same articulation, so they are basically staction figures. But they do look really cool on the shelf, and I know a lot of people missed out on these, and they are pretty old, so they may not have been collecting back then. Unfortunately, they do get a pretty price tag by now, so if you do want to start collecting this line, you're probably going to have to shell out some bucks to get them. As much as I do love the line, I was always puzzled why they never made like Lord Sadler or Salazar or even Ashley, because they're three main stars of the game and they never made them. So we got a lot of the monks, we got some really unique sculpts for everybody really, and you got all the Leons you would need. But there's definitely some missed opportunities with this line. I think Lord Sadler especially is the biggest missed opportunity because he is the big bad guy, so not having him in this figure line is kind of weird. But yeah, it is a really cool collection. If you can afford to add a couple of these to your collection, I'd highly recommend it. Just be careful with the posing and make sure you use stands for some of these. You definitely don't want these to fall over because they will definitely break. So thanks for watching my review. If you like the video, go ahead and like it. If you have a comment or question, go ahead and leave it in the comments section below. And until next time, guys, see ya.